2 sexual offences against him, and having smuggled himself into a lorry, in a lorry to this country. I think people then claimed to have converted to Christianity, and that was the reason why he was granted asylum. An extraordinary story from start to finish.
Absolutely, and I think it's really brought the dangerous mess of the asylum system just front and centre in a way that no other case has. I don't care how pro-asylum you are. No one sane, in my view, would support this gentleman being granted
I
asylum.
don't know. I think there are some lunatics on the left who genuinely think we should have an open border policy.
Well, I think this case exposes them as an absolutely absurd and dangerous proposition. You've got someone who came to this country illegally, as you say, who was rejected for asylum not once but twice, who commits sexual offences here in this country and is not deported as a consequence of that. And on the basis of an obviously sham conversion to Christianity, is granted asylum. And also, if you think about the family who have had these injuries inflicted upon them.
said she was a refugee. She's a refugee
Exactly,
as
she was
well.
staying in the local refugee hotel. So this is not only now, this laxness, this absurd policy, is not only a threat to British citizens, it's also a threat to the people who come here in search of safety and a better life. If this isn't an indictment of the system, I don't know what it is.
No, exactly. And I'd say, I hope he is dead. And I said at the time, I hope he is dead. I mean, the world's a better place without people like him on the planet. So let's hope that is when he does appear. That's what the Met Police think. So we'll get confirmation of that as we do. We will, of course, bring it to you here first here at TalkTV. But also other breaking news in the last half hour. The Attorney General, Victoria Prentice, has referred the sentence of Valdo Callacane, that's the Nottingham triple killer, to the Court of Appeal. She believes that it was unduly lenient. Of course, he was sentenced to an indefinite period in a mental health hospital, high security, but nevertheless a mental health hospital rather than a prison, on the grounds of diminished responsibility. Now, he was a paranoid schizophrenic. He pleaded guilty to manslaughter rather than murder, even though he pleaded guilty to attempted murder of 3 other people. He, of course, was responsible for the brutal stabbings of 2 students, Barnaby Webber and Grace O'Malley Kumar, walking home at night, and a caretaker in Coates on his way to work in the early hours of the morning, I think June last year. Now, I mean, it's an extraordinary case. We were following it live on air when I was on the breakfast show here at TalkTV. Big concern by the wider public, but particularly, of course, speaking out from the outside the court, the families of these, particularly of the 2 young students, basically saying this isn't good enough. Do you think it's right that the Attorney General has basically called on the appeal judges to decide whether or not that sentence should be increased?
I think for it to be looked at again seems to me entirely legitimate, not least because, as you say, there were these kind of confusing elements to the particular judgment as what he pled guilty to and so on.
But how could you be sound mind enough to plead guilty to attempted murder, but sort of a few minutes or hours earlier you weren't capable of murder because of diminished responsibility?
And that's something that, again, would be good to get to the bottom of, not least for the sake of the victims' families in all of this. I suppose there is always going to be that case that when you've got an individual who commits heinous crimes but is genuinely have diminished responsibility on the basis of severe mental health conditions, therefore that's always going to feel kind of less, shall we say, emotionally satisfying when they're just locked up in a mental institution rather than actually a prison. But sometimes that is just the way these things bear out. That is the best way in order to keep this person separate.
It's a question of like whether if he was ever released from hospital, would he then be sent to prison, which I think what most people would prefer. You know, I wouldn't want to be on the streets with that man ever. Yeah, indeed. Well, you know, do welcome your thoughts if you want to get in touch about either of those big stories that have just had announced in the last half hour.